Welcome to The Real Deal with Jason Silverman, the podcast dedicated to helping you build the business of your dreams and live the life you always hoped for, with valuable and fun tips and info to make your life easier and more fun. And now, here's your host, a man who sprinkles metal shavings on his breakfast cereal just for fun, Jason Silverman.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Real Deal with Jason Silverman. I'm your host, Jason Silverman, and I am thrilled to share some time with you once again today. As you know, I'm always on the hunt for interesting as well as super smart real deal guests. And I got to tell you, this show has been a couple years in the making. You know, I want to introduce my listeners to somebody who's truly been there and done that. And got to tell you, it probably does it better than almost anybody I've ever seen. So I'm excited to pick his brain for your benefit and secretly for my benefit as well. Now, for the folks who I work with in any of my coaching programs or through Powerful Words Character Development or All-Star Cheer Sites or the Jason's Army Mastermind Group, you know how much I focus on the importance of sharing business success secrets, right? Well, the show is going to help us do just that. So today's going to be my honor and privilege to share an amazing resource with you. You're going to love today's guest. He's got not only a ton of valuable information about growing a business, about becoming a better person, about becoming a better employer, a better owner, really just growth in general. You know, I've had the pleasure of watching our guests for the last, 20 plus years, and I got to tell you, I'm so inspired. I'm so excited every time I get the opportunity to breathe this guy's air that I'm excited to share him with you today. So strap yourself in. Today's show is going to be a blast. As I'm sure you already know, I'm committed to helping business owners just like you to become more successful, enjoy your career more, and in general, make your life significantly more fun. As you know, we only get one ride on this merry-go-round. We want to make sure it's one hell of a ride, right? Alrighty, boys and girls, it is now that time. I want you to stop surfing Facebook, put away your phone, your tablet, your dog, your cat, your spouse, your child, anything that might possibly distract you from today's show. You're about to get some great and immediately implementable information, and I don't want you to miss even a second of it. So before we officially get going, let me give you a little bit of background about our special guest expert today. Mr. Dave Kovar is a successful multi-chain business owner, a lifetime martial artist and fitness enthusiast. He's also a sought-after speaker and consultant on the subject of martial arts training, staff development, customer retention, and new client acquisition. Over the years, Mr. Kovar has led more than over 500 seminars in 8 countries for over 10,000 participants. Mr. Kovar's Martial Arts Instructor Toolbox online training program has helped school owners and instructors all over the world grow their schools to the next level. You can easily see all his work over at www.kovarsystems.com. Mr. Kovar, welcome to The Real Deal. I'm thrilled to have you today.
Well, thanks for having me. That's quite an introduction. I got a lot to live up to on this call.
I have no doubt that you are up to the challenge. So, listen, before we get started, for those who haven't had the opportunity and sincere pleasure of either meeting you or hearing you speak or taking part in any of your trainings, take a second and share your story with our listeners. What are you passionate about? What makes you tick? Who is Dave Kovar?
So, I think that first and foremost, I think what drives me is that, I love what I do for a living. And that is I primarily what I do is I teach martial arts. And I've seen so many benefits, as you know, as a martial artist yourself, what happens when people commit to any worthy goal. And I know that there's a lot of things people can pursue that's going to bring out their greatness. For me, I love what I see when I see people train martial arts for an extended period of time, and that kind of gives me a lot of passion. And I think, what's interesting is sometimes you pick things and sometimes things pick you. And for me, it was kind of martial arts kind of picked me. I was probably about, 7 or 8 years old. It was the mid 60s, and I saw a silhouette of a guy doing a flying sidekick, and I don't really know where it was. I didn't know what it was, but I knew that's what I wanted to do. And it took me years before I could convince my folks to let me do it, right? So I started with wrestling in 7th grade, and then a couple of years later with karate, and it just kind of was something that was in me. And I had the fortunate privilege of kind of falling into a school about 6 months out of high school in 1978, and this is really all I've ever done, is teach martial arts. And of course, the last decade, I've really been focused on helping other school owners grow their business. What I'm probably the best at is like instructor training. That's kind of where my passion lies. It's that instructor-student relationship is so important. And every one of us can look back on a time growing up when they had a teacher, a coach, a mentor say something to them or do something for them that had a massive impact. And I think every one of us are in a situation where we impact our the people around us, especially the younger generation who maybe hasn't yet formalized their view of themselves yet. And we can influence that in a positive way or in a negative way if we don't do it right.
Absolutely. Well, the one thing that always impressed me, and I've seen so many folks in not just the martial arts industry, but really everywhere, all the after school activity world, that have come in first as an instructor and then kind of changed their game and stepped away from their roots. And one of the things that has always impressed me is I always see you training. Always. I see at every super show. I always have the opportunity, and there's always like this big joke, oh, don't give me a hug because I'm all sweaty.
Right.
But the reality is that like you've never moved away from that. Obviously, you love it, and that's never gone away. But how important do you feel it is to owners to really stay in it?
Yeah, well, I think regardless, and I can speak from my perspective as a martial artist, but it applies to anybody that, has a field of passion, is that they keep their passion strong, because that's that X factor that really, allows you to really kind of, keep from being burned out. People get burned out and often it's because people lose sight of their vision. And for me, I'm 57 years old. I'm not doing the same things I did when I was 27, but I'm still doing it, right? And I share that with you because one of the things that I think that people have to do is they have to be really mindful of where they are, their stage they are in their life, and not use it as an excuse to not train, but make sure to whatever that they're doing it. Like I look at my training as health first, fitness, and martial arts third. Now, when I was younger, martial arts was top of the list, but now I look at health and fitness as a part of my martial arts training, because you and I have both seen a lot of guys that were maybe really good in the day, but they're so beat up now they can't do anything, and I don't want to be that guy, right? So I think first and foremost is that I try to really train on a consistent basis, and what that does for me is it just makes me, I think anytime you're a student, you're a better teacher because you can really identify with that student experience, right? And there's something that happens when my training is going well, and I'm going to step in and I'm going to teach a class to instructors, or I'm going to talk about the business of what, to school owners. Somehow, it just the message is delivered with more spirit, and it's picked up better as well.
Mm. Well, you just said something really, really important, that, being that student, putting yourself continually, and I feel like you've successfully strapped the white belt on for the last, multiple decades, which is so cool, because you've never lost sight of the fact of what that newbie coming in feels.
Well, it's interesting because, the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know anything. And that's been my experience with my martial arts training. And now I've tried to expand it onto fitness, nutrition, and kinesiology, and all those things that like I realize, there's a whole lot of other worlds to explore. And somehow when you're in that kind of module, it keeps everything fresh, And then what I'm able to do is I'm able to relate whatever I'm learning, or whatever I'm thinking about, or whatever challenges I'm going through. I do my best to be able to relate that to the group of people that I'm communicating with, and I think it keeps it fresh and real for them as well.
Absolutely. So, just to get into it, why do you feel like martial arts training is so valuable to so many people?
Well, so first and foremost, you can develop self-discipline and commitment doing anything. It doesn't matter. Any productive activity, whether it be, chess or golf or cheer or anything else, right? As long as for me, what makes martial arts unique is the whole aspect of the fact that you're teaching people, like how to defend themselves. And that's that deal. Like at the end of the day, the analogy would be, let's just say someone who's training martial arts, I rear end somebody and they get out. And by the way, I'm going to apply this to an adult, but the same situation would be on the playground with a kid. And I rear end somebody in my car. I feel bad about it. The guy gets out, and let's say this gentleman has predatory he had a bad day and he's a predator by nature. Okay. He gets out of the car and he walks up and he's mad as heck at me. Now, if I respond, in a fearful way, I'm only going to draw out more of that predator out of him, right? And the flip side is if I don't know how to respond, so I get angry back because I can't control my emotion, what's going to happen is logic and emotion are like oil and water. They don't mix. And that's just going to provoke the situation. So what I've got to do to be able to resolve this situation in a peaceful way is I've got to be calm but confident. So my body language, I have my hands up, my leg is back, but I'm going, hey, buddy, I'm looking him right in the eye, and I'm saying calmly, hey, man, I apologize about that. Let's let the insurance companies take care of it. Everything's cool. Don't worry. So I'm giving him an out. But my eyes and my body language is saying, buddy, take another step forward, and we're going to do this, and I can handle myself. And that little X factor that you can't, it's hard to fake, right? I don't know that you can't fake it, but it's hard. And so I call it practice the fight so you don't have to. And that's something that's really unique to martial arts is that, someone's learning, valuable life skills. And of course, hundreds of martial arts like I do. And martial arts are generally the most peaceful guys on the planet. They're the least likely to be in a confrontation because they get a chance on a regular basis to kind of embrace their shadow, to vent a little bit in a healthy environment. And also, we realize that how many, and martial arts keeps us humble too, because we realize we're not invincible because there's a lot of really tough guys out there. So I think that's kind of a nice reminder as well.
Absolutely. And obviously from the kid perspective, I remember teaching, having hundreds and hundreds of kids come in there and just thinking, wow, just the importance of what's being shared here. I mean, the difference between being scared to go to school or not being scared to go to school.
Totally. And one of the things with kids, probably one of the important things that anybody can teach, they don't have to be a martial artist to do this, is a polite greeting, to a kid. How somebody can shake somebody else's hand, how a child should shake somebody's hand and look them in the eye. And why that's so important is that several things are happening when a kid learns that. Once again, the predator, 6 or 26, they're looking for someone that's an easy market to the victim. Okay, the average predator does not have an alternative plan; they have an alternative victim. So if we can teach our students just to project confidence, then they're less likely to be confronted. Doesn't mean guarantee they're not going to be confronted. So one of the first things, of course, kids learn in martial arts training is to look someone in the eye and shake their hand. And what the message there is that, hey, I'm a polite person, I'm courteous, I'm respectful, but I'm confident and sure of myself, so don't mess with me. So there's a lot that's happening in that very moment, right? And then projecting from there, then of course, you're giving kids learn from experience. They all learn from experience. But so in a martial arts school, what happens is kids learn, so much emphasis on avoidance and how to talk to out of a situation. And so they learn how to confront potentially violent, dangerous situations with a peaceful solution first. And so rarely does it ever get to the physical altercation, so that's one of the things that I think why martial arts is so unique with that as compared to other aspects. For example, my 2 kids played soccer for years. They loved it. I had great coaches. I know some people complain about the soccer coaches. My kids had great coaches, but there was never a time that the coaches at the beginning of the game or at the end of practice said, okay, guys, and make sure to be nice to people and don't misuse your soccer on anyone. Because it's, in essence, it's soccer, right? But with martial arts, because the nature of what we're teaching kids is potentially violent, it obligates, mindful martial arts instructors to really emphasize the other side, respect, self-control, courtesy, and all those things that kids may or may not be hearing other sources. And because they respect their martial arts instructors so much in almost every case, they will listen to them. They'll hear things that they might not even hear from their parents or their school teachers sometimes.
Right, but now they've got their superheroes saying it, so it makes a world of difference.
Exactly.
What would you say, if somebody was looking, if they're looking to find the ideal school for themselves, for their kids, what should they be looking for? And the reason I ask this question isn't necessarily because I believe that folks are listening to this podcast hoping to find a martial arts school. I feel like while that may be a happy symptom of it, also look at it from the perspective of, what should people be thinking? How should they be portraying their business to the world?
It's a great question. I think first and foremost that I can't speak for other businesses, but I know that in the martial arts business anymore, 20, 30 years ago, you could be mediocre You could, you could have maybe ulterior motives. Let me see how much money I can get out of these guys, and who cares if we continue training or whatever it might have been. But anymore, people that are successful in the martial arts business have learned that the only way to do good business is to do good business, meaning that you really have your customers, interest in mind. And one of the things that I would say, looking for anybody that's going into an endeavor that they're going to get involved in or their kids involved in is rapport that the coach or instructor has with the students is really paramount to me. Like in martial arts, what style they learn is really secondary. And especially in the martial arts in America is the melting pot. Like we've all borrowed from each other, right? But so that's the first thing I look at is that instructor-student relationship. The next thing is are the kids, what happy? Are the parents happy? Let me give you an example. So I think the two things that go into what someone's got to be in any business, but there's the will and the skill. Let me explain what I mean by that. Let's imagine that I just moved to a new city and I want to get my 5-year-old daughter in gymnastics. And so I look online and I see two different gymnastics centers. And one of them, the guy was a 1996 silver medalist in the Olympics. I look at his picture. I go, oh, yeah, I remember that guy. I watched him on TV. So I go down to his place. It just happened to be right down the street from my school. I go in there, and what I see him over in the corner. The place is kind of dirty. It's a little dingy. He's sitting in the corner kind of barking out orders to a group of relatively quite talented 14-year-old girls. He looks up at me, hey, I'll be right with you. But you can just feel, by the way, this guy knows his stuff, no doubt about it. But you can feel that the will isn't there. Just kind of doing this because that's all he can do, right? So I go to this other place down the street, and this is the credentials aren't real clear. It doesn't look like there's any really competitive what success, but it's a husband and wife couple. I'm going to go there anyway, and I walk in there. And what do I see? I see a bunch. The place is bright, it smells good, it's happy, and I see it's instructors out on the floor just having a great time with a bunch of really happy 5-year-old girls. Now, the question that I would pose is it's not a right or wrong answer. It's a total opinion, but where would you think I would take my 5-year-old daughter? Which place? The first place or the second place? Well, for me, it would be the second place, clearly, right? Because that person has the will. But guess what? I look one more time online, and I see another place. And I go, oh, this lady was a bronze medalist in the 2000 Olympics, if there was one. 2000, I don't know, I'm making this up. But so I show up there, and what do I see? The place is bright, happy. There's a bunch of really excited 5-year-olds, as well as a bunch of talented 14-year-olds. Now the choice becomes clear, because this place has both the will and the skill. They know what they're doing, and they want to be there. And that's what I would recommend for someone in really any business. Someone that, first off, is confident, but also it isn't burned out yet. Is still happy and excited about contributing to the community through their business. That's
enormous. I don't know that I've ever heard it put quite so plainly like that. That makes perfect sense. So thank you for doing that. It's a great example. Tell me this, as far as attitude is concerned, how important do you feel, or where do you feel attitude plays its part, in the level of somebody achieving success?
Well, it's so clear. It's so important. And, what's interesting is that, I was reading one time, and I'm trying to think of where I got this information because it was relatively recently. There was this thing about how people are born with a happiness quotient on a scale from 1 to 10. Scientifically, some people come into the world as a 3, some people come into the world as an 8, right? And that we all know people that are like that, right? In our family or friends that are just naturally happy, right? And others that are kind of naturally a little bit more glum. But what's interesting is this study kind of said how we all have the ability to adjust the scale 3 or 4 points either way, right? So you could come into the world kind of this naturally optimistic, happy person with a great attitude, and your environment and your education and whatnot could bring it down. Or you could be at a 4, but somehow get up to a 7 or 8 based on the same things. So I think that it's crucially important. And what I find is interesting is it really is a learned behavior. I remember hearing Tony Robbins say one time a line that stuck with me, I've never forgotten, was stand guard at the door of your mind. I love that line. And that is that, you be careful what you let in and, who you're surrounding yourself with and what you're reading, in the morning. It's so easy. I don't know about you, man. I can get up, and if I just happen to, and I don't, but let's just say I happen to, I'm traveling and I go down to to the hotel lobby for breakfast, and the new local news is on, and there's a disaster here, and there's a burglar here, and how that affects my mood for the day is compared if I really do it on purpose. If I get up and I go through my ritual, my routine, which is very consistent and focused, my morning is really important because it sets the day. Because I know if I show up kind of with the right mindset, then whatever challenges I face, it's not that I'm not going to have challenges, but I'm going to look at it more proactively, and I'm going to be more solution oriented, And so why not stack the odds in favor of your success by doing everything you can right to develop those right habits that are going to help you develop have a consistently attitude that's in line with what you like to achieve.
I love that, and it's so interesting you say that, especially, with the date being early November of 2016, with all of the news going on, so little of it positive. I don't remember the last time I actually watched a news show on purpose. We just don't do that in our house because I think it must have been about 7 or 8 years ago, we sat down and said, this is such garbage. Everything in here, it's too heavy to carry with us for the whole day. So,
to your point, let me give you a headline. Trouble in the Middle East, gas prices soaring, youth, worse than ever, yada, yada, yada. Well, I remember watching TV with the news with my dad. That was like 1970, right? In other words, there's always that sense, and not that there's not real challenges, right? There's always that sense, that everything is the worst ever. And the reason is because, as we've evolved over time as a species, our ability to be mindful of good news is what bad news is what kept us alive, because we had to know if there was a rumor in the village next door that they were disgruntled with us and they might be coming to war, I needed to know that. So my antenna, we're wired to hear bad news, right? And so then, of course, now you have media that knows that, and that's what they're going to get their ratings from. So intellectually, we all know this, but it's still so easy to get drawn in if you're not really mindful of what you consciously watch and are aware of.
I love that. And one of the other things I just took notes on was, being prepared, coming armed for your day.
Yes, sir.
What a great way to explain that. Again, you can come armed with all of the negativity, or you can come armed with all of the positivity. And actually on that, I got to ask the question, you've been doing this for a while. So what do you do personally to keep your enthusiasm and your passion strong?
So I think it starts by a line that I don't know where I heard it, but it's take care of the days and the years take care of themselves, right? Is I think sometimes we are so focused on where we want to be in a year and a half, 2 years. And by the way, I'm a fan of setting goals. Of course, it's important to have goals set. But sometimes, what we do is imagine, if I find let's say I personally like to have vegetable garden, right? Especially tomatoes, nothing like homegrown tomatoes, right? So if let's say I'm going to sprout them from seed, and I go in there and I do everything, I sprout them, I put them in the garden, and if every day I'm pulling them out to check on to see if it's working or not, I'm going to kill it. So what do, man? I plant the seed, I water it, I make sure it gets plenty of sun, I make sure that the soil is fertilized, and then I let time take its course, right? Well, so it's kind of like, it's great to have long-term goals, certainly, but it's really about the process of that daily ritual. I think the quality of your life is in direct relationship with all the habits and routines and rituals that you have in place. And so when you kind of set every day up to where you make sure that you first start beginning with is it of course, exercise, rest, nutrition are the three pieces of that health puzzle. However, especially in the Western world, the thing that we most of my friends and myself, man, we brag about how little sleep we get sometimes. Yeah, 3 hours sleep last night. I'm pushing through, Well, and if the only way you're getting through the day is with a Red Bull in the afternoon or a power drink, there's something wrong with the way you're living life, right? I get it if every now and then that happens, right? But the bottom line, it starts by being mindful of the fact that by the way, remember in generations past, the emphasis was on the gunning, as he was talking about. And then it was maybe, your fresh fruits and vegetables, which of course is important, but that was the emphasis. And then of course, I don't know if these all correlate exactly, but you get the idea. Then of course now in fitness, it's CrossFit, and everything was kind of that's really taken over. And even if some people don't like CrossFit, there's still the mindset of cross training. And well, I think the thing you're going to see more and more of in the future is the importance of sleep and sleep hacking. And so that's the starting point. It's like doing the best you can to find out what you need. And then for me, it works for my routine is I get up real early. First thing I do is I exercise in the morning. When I get back, I do my reading and meditation at that point. I kind of prepare for my day, and I try to have a healthy breakfast and try to get to the office in a leisurely fashion versus, stayed up too late last night watching reruns of The Office or something, and I get up late, I race to the office. On the way in, I grab a coffee and a donut. Fast forward 10 years and see where those two differences make you, right? So I'm a big habit of daily ritual. Now, there's always going to be exceptions. You're going to be on vacation, weekends, etc. But I'm talking about those habits, those kind of Monday through Friday habits. And if you can develop those and guard those, great stuff.
I love that. That's, again, it's so interesting. I have the luxury of talking to so many successful, super smart people. And it's so interesting to see how many people say similar things as far as, what are your success habits and what are you doing every single day? It's one thing to be like, I'm going to make this big declaration of all the things I'll eventually do. But no, really, what are you doing today and tomorrow and Wednesday and Thursday? So that's fabulous. I want to switch gears for a quick second, if you would, because one of the things that I've so admired about you and your organization for so long is the team you've built is so rock solid that, it's one thing I've seen in some organizations, you've got one person at the top who's really fabulous and fantastic, and then there's kind of like the flubby middle, and then there's the bottom. I've never seen that. Everybody involved with your organization is just, everyone's just, buttoned up top to bottom, and it's really been exciting to watch and really inspirational to watch. So what would you say are some of the key points, you've learned over the years in developing such a great team?
Well, thank you so much. I'm more proud of our team than anything. Right now I've got actually 150 employees, about 50 full-time, the rest are part-time, and just an amazing group. And we're not without challenges. Anytime there's two or more people getting together, besides you and I, there's very few perfect people in the world.
Well, it's just you, actually. So.
Yeah, no, that was a total. But anyway, so the deal is that there's plenty of challenges, but I think, for us, this is where our main focus is, and kind of, it's one of the things that I'm not good at a lot of things, but I know what I'm good at. I know what I'm not good at. So one of the things that early on, my brother was my business partner for 20 years, and he really hey man, we got to develop this team. It can't be just you and I, because I was trying to do everything. And so we kind of started early on, kind of cultivating a staff. And of course, my business partner now is Dave Chandler. He's an amazing guy, and he's kind of had the same attitude. But we kind of boil it down to these 3 steps, and they're easy steps to say, hard to live by. But it's hire right, train right, treat right. And so the first thing is that you got to start with the right person, right? And that's really tricky. But imagine if for a second I had someone, and what a lot of people do when they're training or they're hiring staff is they hire the best of 3 choices, but it still wasn't really quite the person they wanted. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like, imagine if I thought, okay, I'm shopping to get married. Here's the 3 girls I've been dating. I don't really like any of them, but I hate this one the least. Let me get engaged to her. Not the way to do it, right? And so I think what we do is we settle. And sometimes you got to do what you got to do. Like in our business, teaching martial arts, man, coming across an instructor is hard to do. It takes a lot of time. So sometimes people will settle for mediocrity because that's all they got. And I get that. But that's because they're not thinking long term. So you deal with whatever you got to deal with today, but you got to be planting seeds for next year and the year after. And that's something to start now. So hire right, meaning that you make sure you get the right person. If it's not the right person, you keep looking. And then once you've got the right person, you train them right. Because my experience has been that most people you hire, if you have any type of sensory acuity, you've been doing this a long time, you kind of know, man, that you're getting a good person or not if you do the interview process right. But what happens, I think most people that you hire really want to do a good job, right? I mean, I don't think people go into a job thinking, oh, good. Maybe it's my naivety or but oh good man, I'm gonna hire this job and I'm gonna do as little as possible and I'm gonna take as big advantage as I can. I don't think most people, at least most people I hire, haven't done that. But if you don't train them right, they're going to develop maybe habits that aren't conducive to your model. And so this is especially important the first time somebody does something. Like, let's say, for example, if I let somebody, I'm teaching martial arts and let me give you an example. My son, who's now 21, he's going into 7th grade. He's going to start wrestling. He's on the wrestling team, and I wrestled as a kid. So, and of course, I'm a fan of jiu-jitsu and MMA, and I do all those things. And so I get his buddies, him and down to do and I'm helping him do a double leg takedown. Okay, so basically, for those of you that are listening, double leg takedown is a classic wrestling 101 technique. And so so I have, and one of the things that you do is you lead forward and you put your, let's say I put my right knee between your legs, I put my right shoulder right in your abdomen, I put my head on the outside, I hook behind your knees, I lift and I turn. So I have my son do this for about 5 or 10 minutes. And then I realized, wait a minute, and he was starting with his right leg forward. Okay, so that would be called, we call a right lead. And I realized, wait a second, he spars with a left lead, meaning his left leg forward. Let me reverse that. So I have him do it on the other side. And so now I have to do everything completely different. Well, in that first 5 minutes, it took him 6 months to know which side of the body to put the head on, because that first 5 minutes I trained him on. So that was a long story. So the whole idea, when you get somebody on board out of the gate, to help them develop the right habits, so they have no bad habits to begin with, to settle. So if someone's answering your phone, make sure you have them answered exactly how you want the first time they do it, because that becomes their habit, and then it's way easier, to train them, because you don't have to undo habits. And then the third one is treat them right, and that's the one where there's so much that goes into that. But bottom line for me, that means that, hey man, try to be someone that you would want to work for. Go to battle for your team. Build your emotional bank account, Stephen Covey says, by catching them doing things right. Let them know that, hey, Mr. Employee, I'm here to help you. How can I help you do your job right? And that's kind of the formula that we've done our best to create. Is really to try to treat our people right and make them really enjoy working with us.
I think that's brilliant. There's so many keepers and writer downers in that last couple of minutes that it's unbelievable. Folks, go back and listen to this. Obviously the whole podcast, but specifically anybody dealing with challenges with staffing, which I hear about pretty much every day. You got to go back and listen to that over and over and over again. All right, it is time for our resource of the week. So if you would, tell me, how can my listeners find out more about you and, how you've gone about helping folks to succeed?
So, a couple of mainstream things that I do is I have a couple books out there. I have a book called 3 Points of Clarity. It's available on Amazon. It's kind of just it's my chicken soup for the soul. That would be my way to describe it, right? I have another one called the Martial Arts Instructor's Toolbox that you could take out the word martial arts and put anything else and it applies directly. Which are both kind of real easy reads that kind of outline kind of what we do. And then for more specifically, people are in the martial arts, field. I've got a couple products that you can go to kovars.com. One of the ones that we call it the Instructor's Toolbox, which is an online, basically training module for instructors, to where they can go and there's all kinds of drills and skills and teaching strategies and techniques that they can acquire. And so, our kind of goal, and then of course we have more progressive coaching programs as well, but our goal is just to kind of, as you've heard this line, it's probably been said a million times, but the rising tide lifts all boats. And I know that if I do a good job in my city, I help everyone else. Just like if somebody does a good job in Seattle, I benefit because, well, let's back it up. Let's say I have a lousy program in Sacramento. So inevitably, one of my students somebody comes in, tries out my program, hates it. They call their cousin in Seattle and say, they don't say don't ever do martial arts at Kovar's. They say, don't ever do martial arts. I tried it out. It's the worst thing for my kid. And so now someone in Seattle is missing out on an opportunity. However, if I do a good job, the same conversation goes different, right? So really, selfishly, for me, it really benefits my business to see other martial arts schools and other businesses doing as well, good as well. So I'm happy to help.
That makes a lot of sense. So it was just so I have it down here. It's www.kovarsystems.com, KOVARSYSTEMS.com.
You got it. Yes, sir.
Fabulous, folks. You got to get up there. You do. All right, Mr. Kovar, I always like to end my podcast with what I consider to be a very telling and important question. So if you could give business owners just one solid piece of advice to either help their business or, probably more importantly, help them to live a better, more balanced life, what would that piece of advice be?
Oh, man. Yeah, I'm going to go with this. I'm going to keep it short and sweet. It's better to have friends than enemies.
Wow.
And you treat, value your relationships above all, right? I mean, we've all done silly things where we said something, maybe that we shouldn't have said that comes back to bite us later. I have a couple examples, in front of my thought, but that's really it, man, is, go about your day trying to develop relationships.
I love that. It's better to have friends than enemies. It's so simple and so, so important. That's brilliant. Dave, thank you so much for joining me today. I know how busy your schedule is with your travel and with the franchise and with your training and coaching. I really appreciate you sharing some of your time and a whole bunch of your wisdom with us. This has been fabulous.
Well, it's been a real honor. I love what you're doing. I love what you stand for, and I'm real excited to be on the show today, and the best to you and to all the listeners as well.
Absolutely. All right, folks, that's all the time we've got today. Thanks so much for tuning in to The Real Deal with Jason Silverman. For more info about private coaching or see if you benefit from one of my mastermind groups, visit me over at www.jasonmsilverman.com. I look forward to helping you achieve the success that you truly deserve. Until next time, let me leave you with this. Get out there and be the real deal. Set a goal, make a plan, work like hell towards it, and achieve the success that's waiting for you. Now's the time. Get out there and make it happen. This has been Jason Silverman, and I hope you have a spectacular week.
You've been listening to The Real Deal with Jason Silverman. To access the great resources mentioned in the show and for information on coaching and mastermind group opportunities with Jason, please visit jasonmsilverman.com.